Hello there, I'm Dawn Westmoreland, hailing from Asheville, North Carolina, the beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains, coming from WPVM FM LP 103.7, the voice of Asheville. I recently met LeRon Barton. He's many things. He's a speaker, he's a TEDx coach, he's a techie, and we're going to talk about what is it like to be a Black man today in the United States and also working in tech. Also, let me tell you that the show is syndicated. It's on over 200 radio stations, can pick it up in the United States, Canada, the Virgin Islands. So welcome, welcome. My show is called The Empowered Whistleblower, where I blow the whistle on things that empower people in their personal lives and work. LeRon, hello, how are you today?
I'm doing really well, John. How about yourself?
Great, I can't complain. I mean, today it happens to be 59 degrees in Asheville, North
That
Carolina.
is beautiful.
Gosh, I could take that every single day. So,
I'm not.
I like just being very assertive and getting right to the point. What is it like today to be Black in America?
So I always tell people to be Black in America is to be walking a tightrope. And what I mean by that, Don, is that you are constantly trying to balance who you are, trying to live in a world of racism, white supremacy, not trying to lose yourself, but at the same time trying to navigate through a system that at best tolerates you and at worst does not want you alive. Um, we see and feel racism from pretty much every aspect of life, from law, from healthcare, from education, incarceration, war, interpersonal relationships, employment, if I didn't mention that. And, it's, we never get a rest from it, right? We're always reminded, like, I'm never in a place where I forget that I'm Black. And I mean, this is just something that has been born. I mean, this is something that I'm born into. I don't know anything outside of that. So that's in a nutshell. So it was like, so if I can give you two more quotes, right? So Martin Luther King once said, being Black is like seeing 10 drunken people, right? You have 9 drunk white people and 1 drunk Black person. And people will always say, look at that Black drunk, right? And another quote that I can give you is, this is something that I got from a Studs Terkel book. Studs and Studs is amazing. Being Black is like walking with a pebble in your shoe. You know it's there. You try to shift it around. It's uncomfortable, but yet you continue to move on. So that's what it is.
Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yes, ma'am.
You and I have talked before, and I've lived in Asheville, North Carolina, almost 19 years. When I first came here, retiring from the Air Force, I was surprised at the lack of minorities, and especially Black people. And to the listeners, if you're not familiar with my story, I'll give it really quickly. Back 11 years ago, I stood up to the second largest federal agency because I had noticed there were only 5 Black employees in the Veteran Affairs out of over 500. And that started me to speak up, speak out, get into litigation for the right reasons, and to become an author, speaker, life coach, and a syndicated radio talk host. Let's talk about tech. Are there a lot of Black men or women in the tech world?
Absolutely not. No. So tech is a very white male dominated space. There's about 80% men that make up tech, 20% women, and Black people make up about 7.6, 7.5% of tech workers in the United States. You have companies such as Apple that has about 2% Black folks, Meta, maybe 3, definitely Twitter does not have very many Black people. Google has about 3%. So the reason why that I want to highlight those numbers, Don, is because it's not that these companies cannot find the talent, but there's a myriad of reasons of why Black folks aren't there. I mean, we're screened out because of our names. My name is LeRon. It's not a very common name. So people will say, oh, it's a ghetto name. I'll give you an example. There was a this young man named Jose. He was an engineer, and he was applying for jobs, applying. You know, mind you, educated person who could do the job, and he was not getting very many callbacks. So what Jose did was that he decided to drop the S. He became Joe. He then sent out the same application, I'm sorry, the same resume, and lo and behold, Joe began to get responses, interviews. So from the name, and also when you were in those spaces, they the people there make it very toxic for you to be there. So it's not one thing to hire people, Dawn, but it's another thing to retain people. So if you hire 30 people, if you hire 30 black folks and 28 of them quit or leave, well, that's not a what you have is an environment that is not very friendly to black folks. And so also, I'm sorry, finally, many jobs are gained by people you know. I believe it's 75% of all jobs are gained by someone you know. There's a term I learned from my friend and colleague Karen Fleshman in 2013. It's called social capital. And what social capital is that I'm going to refer my fraternity brother, my family member, a guy that I play flag football with, you know, somebody that I hang out with. And studies have shown white people only hang out with white people. So if you are constantly referring people you know, well, it's going to be a very, I guess, homogenous place. You know, that these are a couple reasons why tech is so white.
Hmm. How do we change it, LeRon?
Well, there's a couple reasons. I'm sorry. There's a couple of ways. I'm sorry. First off, we need to recruit outside of Stanford, Harvard, MIT, and Cal Berkeley. College is very expensive. Black people as a whole, we don't have a lot of money, so a lot of us cannot afford to go to these colleges. Listen, I wanted to go to Cal when I was younger. Like I wanted to go to Berkeley. Like I didn't know where Berkeley was, but you know I just thought that you know going to Berkeley sounded cool. You know, got a chance to go there later. It's pretty cool. It's not really my jam, but so looking outside of the usual places, also uh, let's uh, let's start to not hire people just because of a quote unquote culture fit. And what I mean by culture fit
Mhm.
is that if I don't play the same video games you play, or if I don't listen to the same music, or you know, if I'm not on your softball team, then you may not think that I fit with the culture because I look a certain way or because I sound a certain way. So that needs to be eliminated. And there needs to be a concentrated effort by diversity departments to, lack of a better term, diversify tech. I think a lot of DEI departments and teams fail because they're ran by white women primarily. I believe it's over 70%. And when you have a team that is supposed to be about inclusivity and it's ran by the most dominant group, well, they're not going to know what is needed. You
Mhm.
know, and you know, and this is not to slam DEI or to slam white women that are in DEI. It's just that this is a problem that I see. So yeah, and those are just three tips. Oh, and finally, there needs to be outreach into inner city schools. You know, again, some folks can't afford to go to college, and every job that I've gotten in tech, you didn't really need a college degree. You know, I make six figures and I don't have my bachelor's degree. So I think the need for a college degree is starting to kind of phase out. Not that I'm knocking college because I think college is a wonderful tool. I think that you learn networking and just life skills and just you know how to be an adult. Like I'm pro college to the ninth degree, but if you don't need it to go into a field, And if you don't want to incur that debt, Don, then maybe there's another way, you know.
I get that, LeRon. I went in the Air Force so I could earn my degrees. So,
See?
and I want to touch on a couple of things that you brought up, and I'm really glad you brought them up too, LeRon. You were talking about names. About I don't know, about 8 years ago, I was part of a book called The Strength of My Soul, and it was a bunch of authors, co-authors, and I was one of them. One of the girls' name was April Mansfeld, and it's out there publicly, so I can talk about it.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
apply for jobs, and because of her last name, she would go in and they thought she'd be white, and they were just in utter shock, even would say you're black. And I said, well, how terrible. It should be being looked at, as a candidate, even and square. Not that you're white or black or Asian or anything like that.
Right.
It's
You know, Don, like someone had brought up a really great. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
oh, it's your turn. Go
Oh,
ahead.
I'm sorry about that. Well, Don, you know what? Someone brought up an almost incredible point. It said, well, when reviewing resumes, how about we take off the name and take off not only the name, but the gender and the race. And so we're people always talk about meritocracy, right? Oh, this, I made it. I worked hard. I made it on my own volition. This is my skills. I didn't get a handout. Well, and I know that's complete bull, right? I mean, there's no such thing as meritocracy in America. It just doesn't exist. However, to get close to that, what I would recommend is that we send a resume in, sans name, gender, race. Don't even fill that out on the application. Just put applicant A, applicant B. Oh man, this person's got SaaS skills. They are a Linux Red Hat guru. Oh, this person has been in tech skills for 10 years. They know the game. So why not do that? I guarantee you, well, I shouldn't say guarantee, but I'm very confident that if we do that, Don, then that will allow many people to choose people not with a bias, because that's what's really affecting the way that we hire. You don't have to hire your boy. Like,
Right.
I don't have to like I don't have to hang out with you to be a good colleague. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, to be honest with you, I don't really hang out with any of my colleagues except for one. Like, I'm sorry, two. I mean, and it's like, but I don't have to be your friend in order to work at this job. And so there's so much cronyism. There's just so much it's just so much of a boys club. And going back to the reason why tech is so like just racist, to be honest with you, is like if 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 you see, as a black person, if I see that Google has about 3% black folks, that tells me they don't want me. It's, that in no uncertain terms, because that says that the black people that work there, they're under so much stress and like they're under attack on a regular basis. So why do I want to put myself through that? Like, I tell people all the time, I will not work in Google, Meta, Apple, like Twitter. Those kind of companies, that's not the environment that I want to subject myself to. You know, there are a lot of young people that are coming out of college or getting hired by these companies, Don, and these companies pay a lot of money. I'm not going to tell you to not do that when that money could be life changing. That's what someone once told me. It's like, hey, this could change the trajectory of their lives. And I was like, yeah, you're right. So who am I to say no? But I'll just say, for me personally, I'm not doing that.
Gotcha. LeRon, I want to talk about reparations. Back in 2020,
Yes, yes, ma'am.
in Asheville, North Carolina, the city voted on reparations, and I'm going to read this to you. I lost my spot.
Oh,
Basically,
okay.
they were 83% white and 12% black, and the city formally apologizes for the role it played in slavery and implemented racist policies. So what they're doing is giving out money to Black folks that are trying to start businesses, keep up businesses, step up. Is that a way for Black African Americans to get ahead? What is your opinion?
Well, I'm 100% for reparations. If we break the term down, Don, reparations, it's part of the word repair is in that. So if I wrong you, right, then I have to not only apologize, but I have to make that right. So with reparations, what this is that this is essentially making Black folks whole. So you are saying because of racism, because it's such a systemic institutional being that has its tentacles in everything. And to break that down, a lot of people feel like racism is just someone calling me the N-word or police pulling Black folks over for no reason. No, racism is everything. This entire country, the fabric of it is built on racism. It's built on the backs of slaves in America. I am what they will call ADOS, which is American descendant of slavery. I recently found out that my people are from Virginia. And for those who don't know the significance of Virginia, that's where the slave trade started in 1619. If you have not done so, I highly advise you to visit the Legacy Museum in Montgomery, Alabama. It is truly life changing. It changed my life. And it talks about how the slaves were not only brought to America, but what they had to go through. So just imagine building America and you being enslaved. And just the thing about racism and is it's to quote Michelle Alexander is it constantly bursts. It's changing over and over and over. So we go from slavery to Reconstruction, which was an incredibly violent time for African Americans. And I'm going to get your question. So from Reconstruction, we then go to the Black Codes. The Black Codes were laws that simply said, oh, if Black people were vagrants or didn't have a job or were just walking around, they could be arrested. From the Black Codes, then came Jim Crow, which was a very violent laws and just rule set, particularly in the South. Now I told you about my people in Virginia. Well, they migrated to Missouri. That was a part of what's called the Great Migration. That was a period where Black people left the South. There was a push and pull method of it, Don. The push was because of the violent racism of the South and just towns being destroyed, Black men being falsely accused of rape and things of that nature. If you look at Greenwood in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Rosewood in Florida, and so from uh, the Jim Crow and the Great Migration came the Civil Rights Movement. From the Civil Rights Movement came the War on Drugs. From the War on Drugs then came to the age of mass incarceration. So what I've done is that I've walked you through Black people's experiences and we're still facing the same things over and over. So we've never got fully compensated. Just imagine when slavery was ended in, I believe, 1865, you're free, go out.
Right.
Well, what am I going to do? Like, how am I going to support myself? How am I going to survive? So reparations is 100% needed also because of the racial wealth gap, which was a theory that just proves like how much wealth one race has over another. So the Brookings Institute did a study in 2022 that said for every $15 that Black folks have, white people have $100. So that's a pretty large gap. So there's no way to close the racial wealth gap without reparations, without cash payments. And so when we talk about businesses, yeah, that may work, but not everyone wants to open up a business. Not everyone wants to be an entrepreneur. Some people just want to buy a home. And home ownership is one of the building blocks of wealth accumulation in America. So I like it. I just feel like that it shouldn't be on the stipulation of just simply owning a bit, like simply owning a business. It cash payments should be given.
You know, I took a leadership Asheville course last year, and I was just flabbergasted and appalled, LeRon, because I learned, and I'm retired from the Air Force. I've been retired almost 19 years, but what I learned,
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know what year it was, but that Black folks who served in the military didn't have the same education rights as the white.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
I just was floored because I, went in the Air Force for education, and I know what it's given me. It's given me lots of opportunities, not for everybody. Trade school is good for many people too, but
Right.
I asked that how long that they had to wait. The Black folks had to wait to get those rights.
You
Yeah.
know, there's a great book, and I'm very glad that you brought that up. There's a book called The Color of Law. It's by Richard Rothstein, and it talks about housing in America. And I mean, Richard Rothstein, he's just brilliant, like because he's so thorough. And one of the points that Mr. Rothstein brought up is that many Black vets could not use, believe it was the GI Bill or the VA bill that allowed people to buy homes. They were not allowed to do that. I believe was it Truman or was it FDR that created the GI and VA loan?
I don't know which one the
Okay.
does education, but yeah, the VA, you do have benefits serving in the military.
Yes. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
But I wasn't aware of that either. I mean, I'm learning even at almost 60 years old of
It's all good. You know what? I'm learning every single day. No, like I mean, it's a lot of the history, and even when we look at things today, what you and I are discussing would be referred to as critical race theory, by people such as, Ben Shapiro and those like evil people. And we know that that's not correct. This is just simply history. But anything that upsets the apple cart and just talks about African American history, and the thing about it is, Don, is that much of our history has been hidden or discarded. Like a lot of it's been whitewashed. When we look at people like Rosa Parks and Dr. Martin Luther King, they are held as these amazing people. We look at Nelson Mandela. He's lauded, but Nelson Mandela was on the terrorist list for the United States for quite some time. I mean, he was a radical.
Okay.
Dr. Martin Luther King, I believe 1 year before he died, Gallup did a poll that stated 63% of white America hated him. That's a year before he died. So let's not act like this history is is harmful. No, this is just simply telling the truth. And it's really sad that children today are going to be raised historically ignorant because they don't know what's going on. Like they have no reference of who MLK truly was. You know,
Good.
nasty work. They say.
Yeah, no, we both are very appreciative of Brian Stevenson, who has the equal
100%.
in Montgomery, Alabama. And I remember learning and reading about him in his book, Just Mercy, that even
Yeah.
he was attacked by white cops and searched.
Right. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Well-known, popular, very respected, loved attorney for civil rights. And he talks about mass incarceration and how, the fact that many Black people have challenges, economic challenges, that it makes them more of a target for incarceration.
100%.
Mhm.
100%. I went to Oxford, UK last year to give a talk about how the tech industry should help the formerly incarcerated with jobs. And one of the things that I discussed, Don, is how crime just happens. So when you don't have resources, the Self-preservation is the first law of nature, right? So when you are trying to take care of yourself, and when there's no legal options, like no one wants to do what I call take penitentiary chances. But when you don't have any other way, you're going to do what you got to do to get where you got to get. What a lot of people tend to forget, Don, is that every ethnic white that came over here did the same thing. Jewish people did it. Italians did it with the La Cosa Nostra, or what you would call mafia. Uh, there were plenty of Irish gangs at the time, but the difference between them and African Americans is that they were able to become white. So a studies have shown that a white person that is convicted of the same crime as a black person will receive 20% less time. I mean, these are facts here. So we have to look at it like we can't forget where we came from. I know this kind of a played out saying, but and I'm not advocating for people to break the law. I'm not doing that whatsoever. But to quote Southern Fried True Crimes, was one of my favorite podcasts. It's not a it's not a excuse, but an explanation. And Mr. Stevenson is 100% right. Black people are targeted for mass incarceration more than anyone. I mean, I believe black men are the most incarcerated people on the entire. I mean, in the United States, for one, like there are more black men in prison in the United States than there are women in prison in the UK, India, and other countries. I mean, think about that. That's crazy. We're 13% of the population. So if you slash that in half, that's 6%. But black men make up the most incarcerated people. So at some point, to quote Yvette Carnell, this is not a choice, but a systemic effort. If it was one off, two off, okay, cool. That's your personal choice. But if you're locking people up at that level, and again, this was, and I'm not trying to turn this into a political conversation here, but the mass incarceration boom was started with the crime bill. In 1994, our president now, Joe Biden, co-authored that. So these are just facts here.
Well, we're
Truth hurts.
out of time. We could talk so much on these different areas.
Yes, ma'am.
I think it's important for people listening in to know, how can they reach out to you? What services are you offering? I know a couple things. You're a TEDx trainer, coach, because a friend of mine got 2 TEDx's thanks to your
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm so proud of Scott. Like Scott is just
space. And
Scott's gonna do great stuff. So I am a TEDx as well as a speaker coach. So if you want to know how to get a TEDx, if you need tips, if you need help with writing a speech, let's say you're gonna do a keynote. If you want to kill it, I'm a 3-time TEDx speaker. I've spoken all around the world, and I can help you out with that. I've spoken at universities, spoken in tech and non-profits. Like one of my favorite talks of all time was at the South Carolina PTA. That was just an incredible talk. And I'm also a writer. So you can reach me at www.leronbarton.com. That's LeronBarton. And I'm always up for a great conversation. I'm curious to know how this is going to go over.
LeRon, thank you. Thank you for your inspiration, your insights, and talking about a situation. We do have racism in the United States, and no
100%.
that. And we all have to come together to change that, to make it a better world.
100%. Yeah, I mean, I recently did a project for a podcast. I can't name it. I'm super excited about it, but I did a lot of research, and it's that when we teach kids about racism, they become better teens and they become better adults. So we have to break the cycle somehow. And I believe that's one way to do it.
And we're out of time. To the listeners, stay empowered. LeRon, thank you so much. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, Don. Take care.